for you. Let's talk about some serious news on the ever-threatening fentanyl drug crisis. The Treasury Department now sanctioning 10 Mexican nationals over their alleged ties to the Sinaloa drug cartel and the companies using chemicals to make that deadly drug. One of the men sanctioned, a brother-in-law and nephew of cartel leader Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán, another a nephew of El Chapo. He's obviously very well known, one of the most notorious drug kingpins of all time. Joining us now, Morgan Ortagus, NewsNation political contributor and former State Department spokesperson. Morgan, always good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, but now I want avocado after hearing that last segment.
I know. I'm like, chips and guac right now or some avocado toast. We would be happy.
Sounds so good.
I know. We'll get some afterwards. But first, you know, it's been 5 years since El Chapo was finally extradited, 2 escapes, 3 arrests, the man the biggest drug traffickers in the world feared, and his business was a family affair. Why is it just now these men associated with him are being sanctioned?
Well, I guess the old saying is better late than never. I applaud these actions by the Treasury Department. I actually worked as a Treasury intel analyst in the Bush and Obama administrations. And so the good thing about U.S. sanctions policy is it generally is one of the things that's pretty bipartisan and tends to, go through Republican and Democratic administrations. But one thing that it's important to know about sanctions, it's not a catch-all, right? It's not the silver bullet, and it never replaces law enforcement or military action, but rather we should look at sanctions as one of the many tools in the toolkit for policymakers to try to tackle important problems. So I think it's a good step forward that the administration is sanctioning these people, because what do we know? We know that fentanyl, sadly, is still the #1 killer of people in our country who are 18 to 49 years old. And we have the administration is doing a lot to try to tackle it. They sent Secretary Blinken to China to talk to them about it. Unfortunately, I think until the Biden administration secures the border, you're going to continue to have this fentanyl crisis be a problem throughout this country because the cartels know how to evade.
Yeah, and we would be able to have a whole nother can of conversation if we just target that border conversation. But in terms of this second generation of the drug war, in El Chapo's day, it was the cocaine and the heroin and the marijuana. Now it's the fentanyl. The drugs are stronger. Are the sanctions strong enough, or is there something more that needs to be done?
Well, I do think that we're starting to be in a good place on sanctions as it relates towards the cartel members in Mexico. We can certainly up that. We have the Kingpin Act. We have sanctions at our disposal. I think what you're going to have to also do, as I just alluded to, is to secure the border. But there is something else that I think that we could more progressively sue, and that's that we need to get tougher with China. So in 2019, in the last administration, we put a lot of pressure on China, and they did ban fentanyl. Because remember, these chemical precursors go from China to Mexico to the cartels.
Right.
Now, as I said a second ago, Secretary of State Blinken brought this up in his meetings in Beijing. However, they said that they wanted to start a working committee on this. I think we're going to have to use a lot of leverage against the Chinese. We're going to have to be much tougher and tell them, just stop sending the chemical precursors. No more excuses. What is killing the most people in our country, 18 to 49, those chemical precursors come directly from China. We've got to cut it off at the source.
And there have been sanctions of this company, an import-export company, REI, Compañía Internacional. It's a majority shareholder allegedly receiving those chemicals from China, operating in Mexico. Do you think more companies like this will be sanctioned?
They should be, and I think we're going to have to start looking more aggressively at the companies, at the individuals, at the entities in China. So, yes, it should be in Mexico, but we're also going to have to get, this administration likes to talk about the root cause of problems. Let's go more aggressively after the root cause, which is in China, unfortunately.
Morgan Ortagus, thank you as always. And again, thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.